Tim Hortons. They use just the right amount of sewer water on this one. Welcome back to Mid-Ice Crisis, the show where we break down the chaos, the cold reality, and the game-changing moments in the hockey world. I'm your host, Josh Cybulski. In today's episode, we are going to talk about Hockey Canada and the Olympic loss. I'm still on it. It was a couple weeks ago. I couldn't talk about this last week because it was the trade deadline, but this week, time to assign some blame for Canada losing to the Americans. I know everybody's going to say it was Nathan McKinnon's fault because he missed an open net, or it was John Cooper's fault because he didn't mix up the lines, or they want to blame bad bounces or blame the Americans or Kash Patel and, whatever, him running cover for the pedos. It's really, people are going to blame any of those things. Maybe it's Radko Gudas' fault for hurting Sidney Crosby. Maybe it's that. We'll find out. Let's chat about it. By the way, if you're enjoying the show, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and drop a rating. It really helps us reach more fans just like you. Let's get into it. The question that I was asking a lot a few weeks ago is, why do we not dominate hockey anymore? What happened to us? And to me, I don't think you can really point at one thing and assign blame to that. But I think there's degrees of blame that can go around. And I think or an organization that needs to wear a lot of the blame here is Hockey Canada, ultimately. And I've done some episodes before where I've kind of shredded Hockey Canada, the Carter Hart episode, at the beginning of the maybe the fourth or fifth episode of this show. I kind of ripped on Hockey Canada and the way they handled the whole London scandal and everything that went on there. And in this case, it's going to be quite a different criticism, but again, we're gonna look at Hockey Canada and sort of their role in all of this. But Hockey Canada is not just tasked with putting teams on the ice and things like that, but their main role in this whole thing is they shape the pipeline of players that are coming up to play. Now, you can look at our roster and go, well, we had the biggest stars. Damn, did we ever? We had, in terms of forwards, we had the best forwards. Arguably, the best defensemen as well. Certainly not the best goaltending. We'll talk about that later. But Hockey Canada has a big role in shaping the whole thing. When kids step on the ice, all the way to the moment that they arrive at the Olympics to play for Canada, Hockey Canada has shaped them along the way. Now, there's other people involved, of course, their coaches, their parents, the institutions that they go to for school, to play in, the OHL, or if it's, whatever, NCAA, that kind of thing. But going back to Hockey Canada, that is the origin story for all of these players. They started in as a little tyke or a little timbit, whatever, getting on the ice. And at the bottom, the system is very much broken. And when it's broken at the bottom, it shows up at the top. And right now, you can see it. Now, we all still walk around with this myth of that we're a dominant country in hockey, and we're not. Even if we had won, we're still not dominant. We would have won by one goal, or we would have just, won the gold or whatever. It was, it was a grind for us to get there. We played tight games. We didn't dominate anybody except for France. But back in the day, it really truly felt like hockey was our game. It was our identity. It was our culture. And to be honest with you, I mean, people will point to Canada, just Canada, the country, coast to coast. And they'll say, well, we don't really have an identity or a culture anymore. And that's true. Sorry, we don't have those things. Is Tim Hortons, is that our identity? Is that our culture? What's our culture? We don't really have one. Oh, it's cold. We play hockey. It's great culture we got there. Sorry, it's gone. And our culture in hockey, all of that, it ain't great. London, Ontario, 2018. That's the culture of hockey. Canada's culture as a country, also not great. Now, back in the day, to stick with hockey, not going to turn into fucking Travis Ridgen here. Back in the day, we rolled the puck out, we won the game. But that era is long gone. And a lot of people on my threads and things like that, like I had some videos that went pretty viral, and people were saying, well, yeah, our era, that era's over. The world's caught up to you. Sure, yeah, they did. They definitely got better. But the uncomfortable truth is really this. They caught up and we stood still. Or, and that's putting it very generously. If I'm being honest, like that's a generous description of it. Really, the reality is that they caught up and things got worse here. And Hockey Canada had a big hand in making things worse. Now, look, one of the big messages I got. So a lot of people reached out to me privately, and I won't read the names of these people, but I'll maybe read a couple of the messages that I got from people because I think they're worth talking about. So here's a couple of messages I got. So the big reason that hockey in Canada is in trouble is Hockey Canada. You got 9-year-old kids who are still playing half ice. They play with no whistles and no face-offs. They are only allowed to go to one hockey tournament a year, and it's got to be after January. That was not the way it was when I was a kid, by the way. When I was a kid, you had half ice at your practices, but you played full ice games. When I was 8, we were playing full length games. You shared ice for your practice. Now, this is what this is. Okay, let me just get out of this one. Go back to another one here. So here's another one. Let me find it. So this is basically the same thing. So different person. Drives me crazy that last year, after January 16th, was it? No. Yeah, last year after January 16th, the kids were allowed full season or full ice, basically up until March break. But then when they went back to play again in September, it was half ice again until January. So all of the positional play that they learned is gone, and they're just playing in a big heap again. It's another criticism. Find this other one here. All right, here's another one. Again, these are criticisms that I got in text message. Hockey Canada forces the volunteers to be certified to death. Anyone who wants to coach has to go to multiple clinics. They got to go to all these different things, through all these different police checks, which I understand. But then if they make even the tiniest of mistakes, they end up at a hearing. Thus, you don't get people who want to coach unless they're hardcore parents. You also have the higher levels of hockey who take a lot of the kids up to the higher levels, which creates a very watered down lower level because the 3 best players just went up to the next level. So the kids that are left at the bottom don't ever play with more skilled players or learn from them. So that's another issue. All right. See if I got any more here. I did have another one, but too many damn accounts. Where are you? All right. So here's another one. Again, just to read you the messages. Checked out your video the other day on the countries catching up, and I can tell you, as somebody who's got a kid in hockey, in the early stages of hockey, Hockey Canada is 100% making us worse. The new rules and the half ice bullshit for like the last few years are taking a lot of people out of the game. Other countries used to copy what we used to do, while we've changed things for the worse. I think the half ice is a huge problem. Once you're in the U9s, you play half ice until mid-January. Again, verifying what the other person said. Then you are allowed to play full ice basically until March. And then the next year, you have to go back to half ice, which really confuses the kids. They also limit how many games, exhibitions, and tournaments you're allowed to play. And this is why you see people starting unsanctioned leagues outside of Hockey Canada, because it's all bullshit. So the half ice logic doesn't hurt the kids that are further ahead. It hurts the kids that are maybe in the middle or a bit behind because they never actually get to play catch up or learn positional play, which is something that used to make weaker kids stronger. If they were good positionally, they could sort of survive, but now they never learn that part of the game, and ultimately they end up quitting or just staying as an unskilled player. That's what the people are saying. That's from the people. I don't know why they bark like dogs, but they are. They're barking at Hockey Canada. So let's talk about development a little bit, because an elite player at 22 doesn't just happen. You get built over the years from whenever you start. If you're 5, 6, 7, 9, whatever, that's where you start. You start in those younger years, and in Canada, you're developed under this Hockey Canada system. And the half ice hockey is not popular with these. Now, granted, this is anecdotal, but I bet you if you went around and you talked to more people, like, nobody's messaging me. Maybe they will after this episode comes out and say, oh, the half ice stuff rules. Like, it's the best. I don't know. Maybe they will. But if you're playing like over half your year in half ice, and then you transition to full ice, and then you transition back, man, that's very confusing for a little kid. Very confusing. Half ice, full ice, half ice again. It's development. You got more puck touches and more skating and more engagement. I'm assuming that's their theory. I don't actually know. I'm guessing that's what it is. But ultimately, you're losing a lot. You're not playing a half ice game. Like, that's not what kids are growing up to play. And the position part of it and the thinking of the game, the hockey IQ parts of it, that gets delayed. So you're going to teach kids one version of hockey, and then you're going to switch them to the real version at some point. It's like if I was to take my kids when they're ready to drive, and I just taught them in parking lots for 5 years, and then I just tossed them out on the highway. Dad, where are the yellow lines on the highway that we put the car in? No, it's not. It's different. It's different. Look at all these other drivers. Man, they're all way better than my kids. I wonder why. Oh, because they practiced on roads. Right, okay. They actually practiced the thing that they're doing. Okay, cool. We're confusing kids. I mean, we're confusing kids in this country in a lot of ways, but we're really confusing them in hockey too. Because kids get used to a few things, right? You play on a half rink, you get used to short distances, tight turns, always having the puck. You know what makes a lot of players really good? What they do away from the puck. You know how Jake Gensel's an NHLer? You know Jake Gensel, guy who routinely scores 40 goals and gets a point a game? You know that guy who's like 5'10", like 185 pounds? Is he even that big? I don't even know. You know why that guy's in the NHL? Because he's smart. He's not the fastest, the strongest, any of that. But he's really, really smart. You know how he got smart? He developed a hockey IQ. Brian Rust, Pittsburgh Penguins. That guy's not the fastest. He's not a particularly good puck handler. He's not the strongest, the biggest, anything. But he's really, really smart. Again, you learn that through development. When you can find the soft areas, when you can make a career out of getting to the soft areas of the ice, it does matter how skilled you are. You certainly have to have a certain level of skill, but you can get around and be a point-producing player without being the most physically talented. Spacing, positioning, being able to control the gaps if you're a defenseman, being able to think the game, anticipate stuff. If you're just boxed in with 9 other players, who's anticipating or thinking the game away from the puck? You're never away from the puck. So we're not totally taking this away from kids, but we're delaying it. We're delaying it by playing in this half ice way of hockey. And like, this is just one example of what we're doing. But then they're going to go away from it. They're maybe pick up a couple things. Then we're going to go back to the half ice. So you're playing these different versions of hockey rather than trying to master one. That's development, folks. Forget consistency. We're developing here. So kids are skating short distances. Doesn't really help your ability, like I said, to get open ice and stuff like that. But yeah, should we be focused on skating? Yeah. Systems? Yeah. spacing, yeah, decision making, yeah, all of these things that kids are delayed now. They're not getting that till later. And when you pull the higher, going back to the point the one guy made, when you pull the most skilled kids up to the upper levels every time, it's going to really thin out the bottom levels. And for a lot of kids, it means they're not going to necessarily, you're not playing a very skilled game, which is tough. Now I'm going to go to the easy one here. And this is the one that people often point to, and they did quite a bit in the videos that I made. And that's just, it's so goddamn expensive to play hockey. Once you register your kid, you buy their equipment, you factor in all your travel, all the ice time and things like that. What do you minimum? Like, I mean, if your kid plays house league, I don't know exactly what it would be, but you're probably a few grand. If your kid's playing competitive, you're in the tens of thousands. And when you sign up, you pay that registration fee. Is that thing going to ice time? Do we know that? No, right. It goes into a fund to cover uninsured liabilities, aka legal settlements. It was a slush fund, right? We know that. Critics have already tore that whole thing apart. Used to pay settlements, generally for, sexual assault cases and things like that. Millions of dollars that got paid out. So just think about that. You're a parent, you pay thousands of dollars a year for your kid to play hockey. Percentage of that goes to Hockey Canada. And then that money just gets thrown into a slush fund and used to pay for, essentially, to subsidize criminal behavior. Not development, not ice time, not coaching. It's settlements, really. That's a big issue. The money aspect of it, certainly. And then there's the culture, which, if you've read Rick Westhead's book, We Breed Lions, which is a great read, by the way. I mean, great in the sense that it's like eye-opening and horrifying. It ain't entertaining, I'll tell you that much. If anything, it's like, it made me sick to read it. And people will point at Westhead and just be like, oh, he's just a liberal. Or maybe he's just a dude who thinks what's going on is horrific, which it is. I'm not a liberal. You should know that if you listen to this show. But I could certainly understand that, like, man, sexual assault's kind of terrible. Like, we probably shouldn't be subsidizing that. Going around and hazing people, young kids who are going to grow up with, like, mental health issues, that's kind of shitty. We probably shouldn't do that. Probably shouldn't do that. But hey, that's hockey culture, right? It's just boys being boys. But it does kind of reflect on Hockey Canada and, like, where the priorities are. And the priority is not transparency. Clearly. Doesn't look like it's really development either. It's not, it doesn't look like it's accessibility or really protecting the institution that is hockey. But protecting one institution in hockey. It's got hockey in the name. But what we've seen is, like, sponsors pull out, funding get frozen, leadership resigning. And a lot of that came from how the organization handled their business. And that's, I mean, heads rolled, basically. And that's good. That is what should happen. But it's disgusting that that's what it took. And, some people say, well, like, that's a PR problem. But really, it's not. It's a cultural problem. And culture really does affect everything. You want to take it back to politics? A lot of people will say, like, politics is downstream from culture, and I kind of agree with that in most cases. Just look at the culture of certain places and who they elect. Culture affects everything, including development and coaching and the way players behave and the leadership and the national team, the team that you send. Now, I'm not saying that the the Olympic hockey team was all a bunch of, criminals. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that everything that happens before affects the people that go, or the way they develop and things like that. So it all plays in. It all does. Now, look, other countries, obviously, like, the point is true that they did get better. There's no disputing that, like, especially the Americans, they've gotten much better. They built things. They built systems and stuff like that while, we're just dealing with scandals and shit. Sweden, they built systems. Finland, built out coaching pipelines and things like that. The US built national development programs. They modernized. All of them did. What did we build? What did we build? I'm trying to think of what we did build. Built some rinks. Went way over budget on them. Yeah. Think of a few around here that a bit scandalous. I don't know if we built anything else. There is this air of we're the best and we're always going to be the best. And then, oh, geez, we lost. We're shocked to lose. It's weird because like 10 or 20 years ago, I'd make an argument we were actually the best at just about everything. I would make an argument that in like the mid 2000s, from like 2000 to, I mean, certainly like 2010, Canada was probably the best country in the world. Not just at hockey too, but we're kind of the best at a lot of things. Like just in general, as like a country to live in, Canada was probably the best. I don't know that it is anymore. I've seen too many friends move to other countries to be like, it's still the best. That's besides the point. But there's an arrogance to us that we need to we got to lose that if we want to actually be back. The thing that happened at the Olympics, like us losing the way we did, that wasn't random. That end result was not random. That was the final product of what we have here. Those players came through the Hockey Canada pipeline. And, they're very talented players. A lot of them had just unbelievable God-given talent. A lot of them worked extremely hard, like Sidney Crosby, was just a workhorse. But all of them came through a pipeline that's quite flawed. And some of them went to the States. And you can say whatever you want about the States, but there's a reason that they left. But I've used this analogy before, but you can't build a strong house on a weak foundation. And right now, at the lower levels, the kids, it's a weak foundation. And it's really not about like one decision. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's hundreds of decisions along the way. The half ice hockey is part of it. The rising costs, the development changes, the administrative issues, the cultural problems, the scandals, the money being put into slush fund, all of those things, they chip away at a system. And then eventually you start losing. Not because you're not putting talented players on the ice, but because your system that's in place sucks. Like, it's shitty. And that's something like a lot of people don't want to hear. They're like, we lost the game, whatever, we'll get them next time. But we've not just lost the game. We've lost the edge we used to have. And that edge came from a lot of things. Hockey being affordable was a big one because volume, right? Sheer volume of kids that would come into hockey. Now those kids go play other things because hockey's unaffordable. They go play soccer. They go play whatever. Baseball, tennis, basketball. Obviously we're way better at basketball and soccer than we used to be. That's no accident. And we're worse at hockey. Something to do with the affordability. All of it plays, man. It really does. Got to get back to basics. Back to the things that kind of made us great. Keeping the development more, like not overthinking it. Strong coaching still. Like our coaches do need to go through training and things like that, but we got to be careful about what we actually do there, what we're actually teaching them to teach the kids. But we used to have a system that works. Obviously it doesn't. Now it's very expensive. It's bureaucratic. It's complicated. And it's run by an organization that, quite frankly, it's lost its way. But I do have optimism that this whole thing can be fixed. I think it can. Why not? There's still an insane amount of talent in this country when it comes to hockey. Obviously, the passion is there. We saw what it was like at the Olympics. Got history on our side. But fixing it, the first thing to fix it actually means like admitting there is a problem. And it starts with Hockey Canada. But until we change things at the foundational level, the results we're going to see a lot more results they're kind of just like this. It's inevitable. So I do believe that we can be optimistic about things, but it's like the country, right? things don't look great here right now, if you're being honest. And if you say if you're one of the people who said like things are amazing here, that's not helpful. That's not going to fix things. I also don't think shitting on the country 100% of the time is good either. Same with Hockey Canada. Like, I don't think you can shit on Hockey Canada 100% of the time. They get some stuff right, but ultimately, like, a lot of things need to change. Till we admit it, nothing does change. But we have to look at the Olympics as an opportunity to get better. And it's always, the cliche is it's darkest before dawn. So we're in a bit of a rut right now. We're still chasing gold, though, and we can be the dominant force again. Just got to admit what's wrong and fix it. Go about making that, the thing that we do actually fix. That's our episode for this week. If you do like the show, please head on over to quenchhydration.ca/second story pod. Support the show. You get 15% off in the products. Again, quenchhydration.ca/second story pod. Next week, I want to get into, just to look ahead a little bit, I want to get into a little bit of a deep dive on what has led to the downfall of the Leafs. Also, touch on the Evgeny Malkin contract situation, if that's still going on. Obviously, he was just suspended, missed a couple games. That one is getting real spicy because him and the Penguins have met. So I'm curious to see what happens in the next week, what happens in the next few months. But big stretch of games here coming up for the Penguins. So we'll touch on that one next week, as well as the Leaf stuff. And again, if you like the show, please like and subscribe. We are available on all of your podcatchers. We're also available. I do daily clips. I do them on TikTok. I do them on Insta. I do them on Facebook. If you check out my bio, you can find all those things. And please continue to support the show. Thanks so much.